Hey everyone, my name is Julie Dwyer. I am a doctoral candidate at Memorial University and I hold a master's in clinical psychology from the University of Edinburgh. Today I'm talking to you about the importance of mental skills training in sports and in particular in hockey. If you've been paying attention to what is happening in Japan right now, mental wellness has taken on a spotlight at the Olympics. Everybody is talking about it, and rightfully so. Mental training is so important. In fact, it is just as important as the physical training when it comes to performing well and doing our best in sport. Sports are pushing athletes to ever-growing standards with the expectation to continually perform better. This creates pressure, mental pressure, physical pressure, stress, and that can lead to things like injury, burnout. And this is impacting athletes of all levels. And we are seeing that on the world stage right now in Tokyo with athletes like Simone Biles publicly and openly speaking about this. The brain is a body part, and we often tend to forget that, but we need to train our brain just like we train the rest of our body. Training our minds, paying attention to how we feel, and taking care of our well-being is paramount when it comes to sports. Just as important as the technical aspects, the physical aspects, the workouts, and everything else that happens. Not to mention that the ability to dig deep, to turn inward, is what gives a competitive edge in sport and what separates out the exceptional athletes from the great athletes. So what exactly are mental skills? Mental skills are psychological skills that give us the ability to perform under pressure, to bounce back from setbacks, we call that resilience, to build self-confidence, to address things like motivation, goal setting, concentration, focus, mental health, things like that. Considerable scientific evidence over the past several decades have consistently shown that an athlete's mental state has a vital impact on sport performance. So what that means is that what's going on up here in your brain, in your mind, is going to impact how you show up, how well you play. No matter how much work you've put in, if the mental training is missing, you're missing a key piece of the puzzle. And that can cause all the other elements of your training to come undone. So training our mind is really, really important. And we can build our resilience, build our coping skills, and prepare for these events so that we can be mentally fit and ready to handle the things that our sports will throw at us. Every person has the ability to become mentally strong, mentally fit, to perform consistently and under adverse or high stake conditions. So for example, a big tryout, hockey selection camp, a big game, things like that. It's not a quality that we're either born with or we're not born with it. It's not black and white. Mental fitness exists on a spectrum. And with training, just like any other type of training, we can work towards strengthening our mental toughness. And that's what I'm going to be talking to you all about today. I'm going to give you the tools so that you can develop the mental fitness to perform your best, even when you're feeling nervous, excited, scared. So the first mental skill that we're going to talk about is goal setting, something that you've likely all heard of. Goals give us direction, and when we use them appropriately and properly, they hold us accountable. They build our confidence. They increase our motivation so that in the long run, we become better athletes. Long-term goals, whether it is 2 years away, 5 years away, things like maybe making the national team, getting a scholarship to go to school, to play hockey, traveling to play in Europe, making the NHL. These are all long-term goals that might seem far away, but we can break down these long-term goals into smaller, more attainable goals that we can be working on right now this summer to bring us closer to where we want to be. This will keep us accountable. It'll keep us motivated as long as we're celebrating all those small wins along the way. So when you're thinking about camp next week, what is it you want to get out of this camp? What is it you want to accomplish that's going to get you where you want to go, whether that's 2 years away, 5 years away, 7 years away. So when it comes to goal setting, where do we start? It's actually quite simple. First of all, we need to know what we want. It's not what our parents want. It's not what our coaches want. It's not what our teammates want. It's what we want. You need to be intrinsically motivated by your goals. That'll give you a better chance of meeting the goals, of exceeding the goals, of reaching your potential. So then once we know what it is we want, maybe it's, making the Canada Games team, making the varsity team, we then have to allow ourselves to be a little bit brave. This is where the courage comes in, because you have to let yourself want the big, scary, wildest dream. Write it down, pin it up, keep yourself accountable to that big goal. Tell people that support you, your parents, your friends, your teammates, and that'll help you stay focused on that journey, even if it is a little bit longer away. So a little exercise I'd like to try today before we head to training camp. I want you to answer 4 questions for me. So you can get a pen and a paper is what I would encourage, so that you can actually keep these answers and keep them somewhere where you can reflect back on them and check in with your progress. So the first question is, what is it you want to accomplish? What is the big goal you want to achieve? Maybe it's 2 years away, maybe it's 5 years away. What is it that you want? Number 2, why do you want this? This is what we call motivation. And knowing our motivation behind our goals is just as important when it comes to staying focused and to reaching our goals. Question number 3, what are you going to do to get there? What are the action steps that you can be working on right now this summer that is going to lead you down the journey towards success that is still maybe, years away? Question number 4, what are the obstacles that you're going to meet along the way? Inevitably, there are going to be hurdles. There's going to be adversity in our journeys during our sport training, things like injury, things like pandemic. Life happens, things happen, and mentally preparing for that keeps us on track. It makes us mentally fitter, more able to cope when these things do come up, as they inevitably will. So by setting clearly defined goals, we can take pride in accomplishments that might have once felt impossible. We can hold ourselves accountable to measure our progress along each step of the way. So take a few moments and really reflect on what it is you want out of hockey and what you want out of yourself and what the steps are going forward. So one of the most beneficial mental skills to master is mindfulness. Mindfulness has become a bit of a buzzword over the past decade within social media, pop culture, sports psychology, but at its simplest, mindfulness is about being present to the here and the now. It's about meeting the present moment with openness, with curiosity, and with acceptance. Sometimes we can be our own worst enemies, our own biggest critics. So it's about meeting ourselves exactly where we are, no matter what we're thinking, what we're feeling, what we're physically experiencing, with kindness, with compassion. So there are many science-backed benefits for mindfulness for sport. This is a very well-researched area. So mindfulness for athletes can reduce stress, both physical stress as well as mental stress. It can improve sleep. So it actually improves quality of sleep, which can then improve our recovery. It can strengthen our immune systems. It can improve our endurance so that we're able to go a little bit harder for a little bit longer. Mindfulness has been shown to increase tolerance for pain. So we're able to, better deal with some of those aches and pains that come along with working really hard and training really hard. And lastly, mindfulness increases our self-awareness. By becoming self-aware, we're able to prevent injuries from happening by noticing how our body is feeling. So taking a little bit of a rest if you're noticing a twinge in your shoulder, rather than just pushing through it really hard and then getting a full-blown injury and having to take time off. So we can practice mindfulness formally through a meditation practice. And all that simply means is just slowing down, unplugging, being present, can even close the eyes and just noticing the breath, noticing how you're physically feeling, how you're emotionally feeling, what you're thinking, and just being present. It takes a little bit of practice like any new skill, but with time, we can develop this and reap the benefits of this practice. We can also practice mindfulness informally and weave it into our daily lives through things like monotasking, so only doing one thing at a time with all of our attention, slowing down, taking a digital detox, creating a gratitude list, making a list of things that are going well for us, cultivating that mindful, grateful mindset, which is beneficial for sport. So these are all things that can be really beneficial. You can even apply grounding exercises to everyday life. So things like mindful eating, where instead of just shoving all the food back as fast as you can, pay attention to your senses. What does it smell like? What does it taste like? What is the texture? What is the temperature? You can even do this in the shower. What is the smell of the soap? What is the physical sensation of the water on the body? What's the temperature of the water? Just using your senses to pay attention. With practice, you will be able to master this skill. And there's a reason now that most pro sports teams, the NHL, the NBA, the NFL, Olympians, elite athletes are now using mindfulness training as a part of their overall training. It's not a magical cure, but with time and with practice, we can master these skills to make us better athletes.